The loudspeaker echoed through the prison yard with enough full force to make several inmates immediately rise from their seats. Breakfast is over. All inmates return to your cells immediately. The voice bounced harshly against the concrete walls, while correctional officers began moving through the visitation area, directing inmates toward different exits. Chains rattled somewhere deeper inside the facility. Metal doors slammed shut one after another with mechanical precision. Captain Reeves pushed his hands against the cement table and started to stand. But before he could fully straighten himself, "Stay seated." The voice stopped him instantly. Reeves looked back toward Dunn. The man remained sitting quietly in the wheelchair, but something about the way he said it carried weight. Not authority, familiarity. The kind that came from years of understanding exactly how the other person thinks. For a brief second, Reeves considered ignoring him. Then slowly, he sat back down. The prison yard had started emptying around them now. Guards escorted inmates through steel doors while the remaining prisoners shuffled toward different hallways without speaking much. The fluorescent lighting overhead hummed loudly enough to make the silence between Reeves and Dunn feel even heavier. Finally, Reeves broke it. "What do you want?" A slow smirk spread across Dunn's face, not because the question amused him, because he expected it. Dunn adjusted himself slightly inside the wheelchair before looking down toward the table. "You got something to write with?" Reeves hesitated. Not because he thought Dunn would stab him with the pen, because old instincts still existed. There was a time when Reeves trusted Dunn enough to walk into dangerous situations beside him without hesitation. Then came the Valentine Children Case, and whatever trust once existed between them slowly rotted away underneath buried reports, missing evidence, whispered conversations, and things neither man fully said aloud anymore. Still, Reeves reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an ink pen. Dunn accepted it carefully. "Paper, too." The captain slid a folded sheet toward him. Dunn rested the paper against his lap. Then, nothing happened. For nearly an entire minute, Dunn simply stared upward toward the ceiling, thinking. The prison lights reflected faintly across his tired eyes while the pen rested motionless in his hand. Reeves watched him closely before eventually realizing something strange. Dunn did not actually know what he wanted yet. That unsettled Reeves more than if he already had demands prepared. The captain leaned back slowly before standing up from the cement bench. His knees cracked quietly as he stretched his back and started walking through the visitation area, while Dunn remained behind, silently thinking. The prison felt colder now that more inmates had cleared out. Reeves wandered slowly past faded posters hanging along the walls. "Stay clean. Think before you act. Your future matters." The kind of slogans people stopped seeing after enough years around institutions like this. From across the room, Reeves occasionally glanced back toward Dunn. The man now leaned heavily over the paper, writing slowly. Very slowly. At one point, Dunn stopped completely and rubbed his forehead before continuing again. Whatever he was writing clearly mattered to him more than he wanted to admit. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. The captain eventually found himself standing near a faded anti-drug poster with giant red letters across the front. "Just say no." Reeves stared at it absent-mindedly while folding his arms. For some reason, the sign irritated him. Maybe because life had taught him that things were rarely that simple. People didn't just say yes to crime, or corruption, or violence. Sometimes they slowly slid into terrible things, one compromise at a time, until eventually they no longer recognized themselves anymore. Reeves's thoughts drifted toward Dunn again, then toward Officer Clark, then toward the Valentine house. Blood on the walls, children crying, the silent little boy. The captain closed his eyes briefly. That case had followed him farther into life than he ever admitted, out loud. "Captain." The voice snapped him back into the present. Reeves turned. Dunn leaned back inside the wheelchair, watching him from across the visitation area. The paper was finished. The pen rested loosely between his fingers. By the time Reeves walked back toward the table, Dunn had already started yelling toward the nearest correctional officer. "Guard!" His voice echoed sharply through the nearly empty room. "Take me back to my cell." The guard approached slowly while Reeves lowered himself back onto the cement bench. Neither man spoke for several seconds. Then quietly, Dunn balled the paper tightly in his hands. When Reeves reached for the pen, Dunn grabbed his hand firmly and pressed both the crumpled paper and the ink pen into his palm at the same time. The handshake lasted longer than normal, long enough to feel intentional, long enough to feel like something unspoken passed between them. Then, Dunn released him. The guard positioned himself behind the wheelchair while unlocking the brakes. Without another word, Dunn started rolling backward away from the table. Reeves remained seated, watching. Not reading the note? Not yet. Something about opening it inside the prison suddenly felt wrong, like whatever waited on that paper belonged outside those walls. The captain finally stood and walked toward the exit while Dunn disappeared deeper into the facility. The prison gates buzzed loudly behind Reeves as he stepped back into daylight. Fresh air hit his face immediately, but somehow, the outside world still felt heavy. Reeves climbed inside his car and shut the door harder than necessary. For several seconds, he simply sat there, staring through the windshield while the crumpled paper rested in his hand. Then, finally, he opened it. The captain tossed the ink pen carelessly onto the dashboard before slowly unraveling the paper. The wrinkles fought against flattening completely. Dunn's handwriting looked rougher now, older, shakier, but still recognizable. Reeves' eyes moved down the page. The first request immediately tightened his jaw. "I want 5 visits from you." The captain kept reading. "This visit doesn't count." Reeves leaned back heavily against the seat. Then his eyes continued lower. "I didn't realize how much I missed having visitors." Something about that sentence unexpectedly slowed Reeves down. "Before my mother passed away, I always had someone to talk to. I haven't had a visitor in 10 years. The captain exhaled quietly through his nose, then kept reading. The donut request irritated him immediately. Apple fritters. Specifically, Jackie Lee's apple fritters. Of course. Even locked away all these years, Dunn still remembered details about the city better than most free men did. But the third request stopped Reeves completely. "Bring Debbie." The captain read that line twice. Then, a third time. "There's something I always wanted to ask her." Reeves stared at the sentence silently. His eyes slowly narrowed. That request bothered him more than the others combined, because it meant Dunn had been thinking about Debbie all these years too. The fourth request softened the captain slightly despite himself. A picture of his mother's tombstone. Nothing more. Just a photograph. Reeves suddenly pictured Dunn sitting alone in a prison cell, learning his mother died while surrounded by concrete and steel. The thought sat heavily inside him for reasons he did not want to examine too deeply. Then came the fifth request. The locker. The retired precinct locker. Reeves' expression hardened immediately. "Bring me the cases and the booklet inside. Make sure the case is unopened. I'll know if it's been opened." The captain lowered the paper slowly. Anger spread visibly across his face now, because suddenly he realized something frustrating. He came here expecting quick answers. Instead, he had just agreed to become part of something much bigger. 5 visits. 5 visits. 5 more trips to this prison. 5 more conversations with a man Reeves spent years trying to forget. The captain reached into the donut bag sitting beside him automatically. Empty. His expression darkened even more. "No donuts," he muttered angrily. Stress always made him eat, and now even that comfort was gone. Reeves started the engine aggressively before pulling away from the prison. The freeway opened up quicker this time. Traffic had thinned considerably since earlier in the morning, allowing Reeves to drive harder and faster than before. 25 minutes later, he pulled directly into Jackie Lee's donut shop parking lot. Several customers already stood waiting near the counter inside. Jackie noticed Reeves immediately through the front window, and one look at his face told her enough. Without saying a word, she grabbed a cup from behind the counter, poured steaming liquid into it, and carried it toward a table near the entrance. Then she placed a small, reserved sign in the center. Reeves noticed it immediately. Jackie always pulled that sign out whenever life hit him too hard. But instead of entering right away, Reeves walked toward the payphone beside the building. The captain slid another dime into the machine and dialed a number from memory so naturally it almost looked automatic. The line answered quickly. "I need to stop by your house." Pause. Then Reeves glanced toward the donut shop window. "Food," he explained. "I'm about to grab some donuts." Another pause. Then finally, all right, I'm on my way. Reeves hung up slowly, but instead of immediately leaving the booth, he remained standing there quietly for a few extra seconds, thinking. Then finally he stepped out and entered the donut shop. The smell hit him instantly. Sugar, coffee, warm dough, comfort. The reserved table waited exactly where he expected it to be. Reeves sat down heavily while gripping the hot cup Jackie prepared for him. Steam rolled upward between his fingers while exhaustion continued hanging across his face. He took a sip. Instantly, his face twisted. The captain stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. He walked outside and spit the drink onto the pavement. That ain't coffee! Jackie leaned casually against the counter. No, she answered calmly. It's green tea. Reeves stared at her in disbelief. It's healthy for you. You are forever trying to shove health down my throat, Jackie smiled slightly. If I don't, nobody else will. She placed a muffin on the table in front of him. Now sit down and give it a chance. Reeves reluctantly took a bite, chewed twice, then immediately walked back outside and spit again. What kind of muffin is that? Jackie crossed her arms proudly. Bran muffin. Reeves looked genuinely offended. It's good for your system, Jackie continued. Make you big and strong. Despite himself, the captain finally laughed. Not hard, but enough to loosen some of the pressure crushing him since leaving the prison. A few minutes later, Reeves walked over and wrapped Jackie into a tired hug before kissing her gently near the jaw. Thank you. Then he started toward the door. Halfway there, Reeves suddenly stopped. Hey, Jackie. She turned toward him. The captain glanced toward the framed photograph of Jackie's late husband hanging proudly behind the counter. Then Reeves smirked. I got my kiss! Jackie's eyes widened before laughter burst out of her unexpectedly. Because instantly she remembered the old joke. For years, Reeves used to hug Jackie goodbye and kiss her on the jaw while her husband shouted from the kitchen, No, no, no! Get your own wife!